What's up? How you doing? Welcome to the stack. Welcome back if you've been here before. I'm neonmushroom, and today we've got, EDH Commander gameplay for you guys. Nothing super special about today's game. It's an older game that we had recorded. We got some stuff with some newer decks coming up soon, but this is kind of a cool deck, so I wanted you guys to see it. That said, before we start the game, I do want to ask anyone who watches these videos a question. Would you guys be interested? I'm not saying that we're making one. I'm just asking if you would be interested in buying a playmat. Do any of you need a new playmat? And if you do, would you be interested in one maybe branded with our stuff from over here at the stack? Let me know in the comments down below whether or not you'd like one. And other than that, let's go ahead and take a look at who's playing, what they're playing, what opening hands they decided to keep, in addition to our normal upkeep stuff.
As always, if you like this show or any of our other shows on YouTube, liking, sharing, and subscribing helps us out immensely. If you like our content and don't mind that extra mile, you can always support us over on Patreon, over at patreon.com/mtg the stack.
What up, Mr. Hopsquatch? I want you to pull out your phone and turn on one of your fantasy voices and read that message I just sent you.
Like Eric Vogel.
Comment down below any of your thoughts and feelings, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Okay, first up we have ttrgr playing his Edgar Markov build, and this is going to be a deck most of you that have been following the channel for a while are probably familiar with. It's just going to be a straightforward, aggressive, vampire tribal strategy. Calvin's decided to keep a 7-card hand, including a Bloodline Keeper, a Dusk Legion Zealot, a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, Talisman of Hierarchy, Chrome Mox, a Basic Plains, and an Inspiring Vantage. After that, we have me, and I'll be playing a deck most of you probably haven't seen in a while. That's going to be Kumena, Tyrant of Orazca. This is going to be a merfolk tribal strategy that kind of wants to build a value engine with Kumena and eventually win the game with something like a Triumph of the Hordes. I've decided to mulligan down to 6 cards, opting to keep a Thrasios Triton Hero, a Kairos Follower, a Swansong, Worldly Tutor, Polluted Delta, Cavern of Souls, and I've bottomed a copy of Silvergill Adept. After that, we have Guy Scott piloting a deck that anyone who's been following this channel for a good amount of time is probably familiar with. This is going to be Jake's Nekusar the Mindrazer build. This deck's game plan is fairly straightforward. It just wants to set up a board state with cards like Nekusar that punish players for drawing cards and then force them to draw a ton of cards using effects like Wheel of Fortune. Guy has opted to keep a 7-card hand, including a Damnation, a Winds of Change, Teferi's Puzzle Box, Island, Smoldering Marsh, City of Brass, and a Sulphur Falls. Last but not least, we have Foley returning to the channel. This time he's going to be playing Chandra, Fire of Kaldhesh, and this deck's design is fairly straightforward. He just wants to play as many cards that include Chandra in the title, art, or text as possible. Foley has also decided to keep a 7-card hand, including a Chandra Pyromancer, a Seething Song, Reforge the Soul, a Jeska's Will, 2 Basic Mountains, and an Arcane Lighthouse. Alright, card game on 3. 1, 2, 3.
I told you guys, Scott.
Calvin 1-card game as usual, so he's going to start by drawing a card for turn, and then he'll play an Inspiring Vantage as his land for turn. He'll play a Chrome Mox, exiling Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, so it taps for black and red. Then he's going to tap out and cast Dusk Legion Zealot, triggering Edgar's Eminence ability, making a vampire token. Then I'll trigger the Zealot, losing a life and drawing a card, and I'll pass the turn to me. I'll draw my card for turn, then I'll play a Polluted Delta as my land for turn, and with nothing else we'll go to Guy's turn, where he'll play a Smoldering Marsh tapped, and pass to Foley. Foley's just going to play a Basic Mountain as his land for turn and pass right back to Calvin for the second turn cycle, where he'll play a Basic Plains as his land for turn and head straight into combat. He's going to turn both of his creatures sideways at Guy, who has no blockers, so he's going to drop down to 38. Then in Calvin's second main phase, he'll play Arcane Signet, and then further tap out for a Talisman of Hierarchy and try to pass the turn to me, but before he can, I'll fetch, losing a life to put a Breeding Pool into play tapped, then I'll untap and draw my card for turn. I'm going to play a Hinterland Harbor, then I'm going to tap all of my mana to play Kairos Follower, and with nothing else, we'll just pass the turn back to Guy, who draws his card for turn, and then plays a Blood Crypt tapped. He has no further action, so we'll move back to Foley's turn. He's going to draw, play a Basic Mountain as his land for turn, then he's going to tap out for a Chandra's Embercat and pass the turn back to Calvin, who will draw his card and play Unclaimed Territory, naming Vampire. After that, he's going to tap all of his mana to cast Edgar Markov, and he's going to head straight into combat. He's going to turn Edgar sideways at Foley, and the other 2 creatures sideways at Guy. Foley's going to opt to block the Edgar, but before that can actually happen, Edgar triggers, and all of Calvin's vampires get a +1/+1 counter. Then we're going to head into damage, and Guy has no blockers, so he'll take the pain and drop to 34. After that, we'll go to my turn, and I'll draw my card, and then I'll play a Cavern of Souls, naming Merfolk. Then I'm going to tap for 3 mana, using 2 of my lands in conjunction with Kairos Follower in order to cast my commander, Kumena, Tyrant of Orazca, and I'll just pass the turn to Guy. After drawing his card, he's just going to drop Sulphur Falls and pass right back to Foley, who's going to draw his card and play another basic mountain. After that point, he'll tap out for his commander, Chandra, and with nothing else, he'll pass the turn back to Calvin, who will untap and draw his card for turn. After that, he'll tap for 3 mana to cast Forerunner of the Legion, which triggers Edgar, and he gets a vampire token. Then the Forerunner lets him go get a Bloodline Necromancer and put it on top of his library. After that, he's going to tap for 3 mana and cast Captivating Vampire because he always has that card. He'll trigger Edgar, get a token, then he's going to activate Captivating Vampire to gain control of Chandra. This works, so after that he's going to head into combat, and he's going to turn Edgar sideways at Guy and his other creature sideways at Foley. Neither of them have any blockers, so that'll trigger Edgar and they'll both take the damage, and with nothing else, we'll just pass the turn to me. I'm going to untap, draw my card, and play a basic Forest as my land for turn. Then I'm going to tap for 2 mana, and I'm going to cast Talisman of Curiosity. Then I decide I need to force Guy to board wipe if he has it, so I'm going to swing at him for 4, he takes it, going to 2 commander damage. Then we'll go to Guy's turn, where he'll play a Drowned Catacomb, and then he will tap out and cast that damnation he had in his opening hand. This resolves, so that's going to wipe the entire board. With nothing else, we'll move back to Foley's turn. He'll untap and draw his card for turn, and play Arcane Lighthouse as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 3 mana in order to cast Seething Song, netting him 5 red mana, and he'll use all of it to recast his commander Chandra, and with nothing else, he'll just pass the turn back to Calvin, who will untap, draw, play a basic Swamp as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 5 mana, playing Bloodline Necromancer, which triggers Eminence, he'll get a token. Then he's going to trigger the Necromancer, getting back the Dusk Legion Zealot, which triggers, he'll lose a life and draw a card, and having recovered pretty well from the board wipe, he'll try to pass the turn to me, but before he can, I'm going to cast Worldly Tutor to get everybody's favorite Seaborn Muse and put it back on top of my library. With nothing else, I'll untap, draw the Seaborn Muse, then I'll play Exotic Orchard as my land for turn, and tap for 5 mana to cast the Seaborn Muse. This resolves, so I'll pass the turn back to Guy, and when he untaps, so will I. Guy will draw his card for turn and play a basic Island as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 5 to cast Nekusar, and with nothing else, he'll pass the turn right back to Foley, who untaps and then takes 2 damage because he has to draw 2 cards from Nekusar. After that, he's going to try to shoot Calvin for 1 with his commander, but Calvin has a response. He wants to Lightning Bolt the Chandra. Foley has a response as well. He'll cast Chandra's Triumph, targeting Bloodline Necromancer, and that triggers Chandra, so he gets to untap her. Then Foley will again tap it to deal 1 damage to Calvin. Then the whole stack's going to resolve, so the Chandra's Triumph will kill the Bloodline Necromancer, the Bolt will kill Chandra, and then Calvin will take 1 from the initial zap from Chandra. With nothing else, we'll go back to Calvin's turn, where he'll draw 2, take 2 life, and play Reflecting Pool as his land for turn. Then he'll tap out to recast Edgar Markov, and head straight into combat. He'll turn the Edgar sideways at Guy and the other 2 creatures sideways at Foley, which triggers Edgar, so he puts a +1/+1 counter on each of his creatures, and they have no blockers, so they have to take the damage. After that, we'll move to my turn, where I'll draw 2 and take 2 damage off of Nekusar. Then I'm going to tap 3 mana in order to do my best Edgar impression and play Deeproot Waters. This means that when I tap for 2 and cast Thrasios Triton Hero, it triggers Deeproot Waters and I get a 1/1 Merfolk into play. After that, I'll head into combat and attack Calvin for 2 damage with my Seaborn Muse. He takes it, dropping to 32, and we'll just pass the turn to Guy, who draws 2 cards, and I untap as well. He'll play a Shivan Reef as his land for turn. He'll tap it for 1 to play a Soul Ring, then he's going to tap that Soul Ring for 2 to play Rakdos Signet. With nothing else, he's going to hold back and just pass the turn to Foley, but before he can, I'm going to tap for 4 mana, activating Thrasios to put Guardian Project in my hand and take 1 to the Nekusar. Then Foley will untap, draw 2 cards, all untap, he takes 2 from Nekusar, and plays a basic mountain as his land for turn. He'll tap for 4 to play Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and then activate her +1 ability to get 2 red mana into his mana pool. He's going to use both of these red mana in conjunction with his mountain to generate 3, and then he's going to play Jeska's Will. When he plays this, he's going to be able to add 5 red to his mana pool, which lets him cast Reforge the Soul. Guy likes that so much he's going to tap for 4 and cast Wheel and Deal, and I can't deal with 2 wheels, so I'm going to tap for 1 and Swan Song the Wheel and Deal. I'll talk about this in a moment, but maybe I was supposed to target Reforge the Soul. Then Reforge resolves, we all discard our hands, draw 7, and take 7 damage to the Nekusar. Then at the end of Foley's turn, I'll activate Thrasios to draw this Lord of Atlantis and take 1 to the Nekusar, and we'll pass the turn to Calvin. On his upkeep, he's going to tap for 1 black and play a pretty Yuriko move. He's going to cast Vampiric Tutor before he draws. He'll lose 2 life, tutor up a Sorin Vengeful Bloodlord, put that on top of his library, then he's going to draw 2 cards and take 2 damage from the Nekusar. He'll play a basic Swamp as his land for turn, then he's going to sort out his mana, and he's going to start by tapping for 4 in order to cast that Sorin. That's going to give his team lifelink. I don't like that, so I'm going to Arcane Denial the Sorin, and then on my upkeep we'll both draw some cards. Then he's going to tap for 2 and cast Cover of Darkness, naming Vampires. That's going to resolve, so we'll tap for 1 more in order to cast Legion's Landing, which triggers on ETB and makes them a 1/1 white vampire token. After that, I'll tap for 1 more to play Vicious Conquistador, which triggers Edgar, he gets a vampire token, then he heads into combat and turns all of his available creatures sideways at me, triggering Edgar, they all get counters. I drop down to 16, then he's going to flip that Legion's Landing and pass to me. On my upkeep, we get that Arcane Denial trigger, so I'm going to draw 1 card, and Calvin's going to draw 2, and we'll take damage for each card that we drew. Then, I'm going to draw 2 cards for Nekusar, taking 2 more damage, dropping down to 13, and I'll play an island as my land for turn. With that, I'll tap for 5 mana to recast my commander, Kumena, and that'll trigger the Deep Root Waters, letting me get a 1/1 Merfolk creature token into play. Then we'll head into combat, and I'll turn 3 of my creatures sideways, and they'll all head at Chandra. This brings the Chandra down to 1 loyalty, and then we go to my second main phase, where I'll play a Soul Ring, and then I'll discard and pass the turn right back to Guy, and when he untaps, I will too, and he will draw 2 cards. Then he's going to tap for 1 mana and cast Cataract Parasite. With that resolving, he's going to tap for 2 more mana and cast Liliana's Caress. After this, he decides to tap out some more in order to cast a Demonic Tutor, which resolves. This lets him search his library for a card. In this case, he's going to get a Wheel of Fortune, and then he'll drop Besiege You Who Shelters All tapped as his land for turn, and I'll tap out completely to cast Wheel of Fortune. I'm going to take a few relatively meaningless actions here and cast Heroic Intervention, and then I'm going to tap for 3, and I'm going to cast Crow's Grip as well, hitting the Liliana's Caress. I thought this would wind up mattering, but the wheel's actually going to be lethal to me, so I'm going to respond by activating Kumena and draw a card, and then I'm going to activate my Thrasios Triton Hero to scry 1 and draw a card, but I don't play any free counter magic in this deck, so I'll just take the Herald's Horn and die. With that, the Wheel of Fortune will resolve, everyone will take their damage from Nekusar and Cataract Parasite, and then Guy is going to attack Calvin for 2 and pass the turn to Foley, who will untap, draw 2 cards, take 4 damage and drop to 3, and then play a basic mountain. Then he's going to tick up his Chandra in order to exile the top card of his library, and it winds up being a Chandra Flames Catalyst. He's going to tap for 6 mana and cast Chandra.
+1. She deals 3 damage to each opponent.
3 damage to each opponent?
That's fucking hilarious.
Oh, man.
Foley will in fact use Chandra's ability to deal 3 damage to each of his opponents, and this will kill Calvin, which is hilarious. Then he's just going to pass the turn back to Guy, who's going to play Makokoro. He's going to attack Foley for 2, and then he's going to pass the turn to Foley, who's going to just untap and draw, losing the game. Guy wins with Nekusar the Mindrazer. That's got to be like the 2nd or 3rd time that Nekusar deck has seen a win on this channel, which is super impressive because I think it's shown up like a grand total of 2 or 3 times. I think it's won like every game it's been a part of, which is pretty interesting because, I don't know, Nekusar's strong. Let's talk about how the game went a little bit, and we'll do it in no particular order, because a commenter said that we should do it that way, and to be honest, doing it in order of importance from like the most impactful to the least impactful is such an ambiguous and hard thing to do, because it's really difficult to tell who is the most or least impactful when you're just glancing at a game on surface level without information on like thought processes and what was in the hand and all that stuff. Anyway, I'd like to start with Foley. Foley's deck's pretty sweet. It's just a Chandra tribal deck. It doesn't have any real like, it's probably like a 5 or a 6 on the power level scale, unfortunately, but he really wanted to play it. He didn't impact the game in much of a meaningful way, except for he did cast that Reforge the Soul for some fucking reason, and I don't understand why he cast Reforge the Soul. I know he wanted to refuel his hand, but he really set the whole, like, everyone but Guy back when he did that, and I think I know what his thinking was. He wanted to refuel his hand, and he probably thought that I was in such a dominating position that I would be forced out of the game, and he was right. I think I'm just a little salty that the not Nekusar player cast a wheel, and he didn't even miracle it. He like used a, what did he use? He used a Jessica's Will just to cast Reforge the Soul. But maybe it was the right play. I am no Chandra player, and I didn't know it was in his hand, so there's a chance it was the right play. I just thought it was awful from my point of view. Like, literally where I was sitting, it sucked. Then we had, and I maybe should have swan-songed the Reforge the Soul as opposed to the Wheel and Deal, because that would have stopped Guy from refueling his hand, but hindsight's 20/20, and then that play I just wanted to counter one of the wheels. Moving on from there, I guess we shouldn't move on from there. I just remembered. Foley did do one really impactful thing. He killed Calvin. I want to talk about this in a little bit when we talk about how Calvin's deck performed, but him killing Calvin was relevant for reasons you guys didn't get to see because it didn't make it into the edit because it wasn't a game action. Anyway, actually moving on to me now, I did merfolk things. I had my Kumena, I had Seaborn Muse, I had a value engine going. I kind of made myself into the arc enemy at the midpoint of that game, and that's kind of what knocked me out of the game. Towards the end of the game there, when I started to sequence the spells together like Heroic Intervention and Crozen Grip, I was thinking that I was going to live through the wheel, and that's just not the case. I did not live through the wheel. I don't play any free counter magic because that Kumena deck has a budget cap that doesn't let me, and I died. So that's what there is to that. It's a value engine deck. I like playing it, but I also kind of don't love piloting those soupy Simic decks that just kind of play lands and draw cards and play creatures and draw cards and play more lands. They're really cool a few times, but after you've done it enough, it just starts to all kind of feel the same, and I don't like playing Magic that way. That's just me. A lot of people really like that strategy. No shame if you do, maybe a little bit of shade. Then there's Calvin, who I was talking about. There was something that happened off camera, and it was on camera, but it was cut because, again, it wasn't a game action. When he was down at 3 life, and he died to Foley playing the other Chandra and using its ability to deal 3 damage to each of Foley's opponents, which killed Calvin, he actually had a removal spell for the Cataract Parasite. I didn't do all the math, but there's a chance that if he was able to remove the Cataract Parasite before drawing his multiple cards and losing the game by taking 4 damage when he was at 3, he could have potentially gone down to 1 life and tried to Alpha Strike Guy, which would have been really interesting because there's a slight chance that if the math didn't work out right, Foley could have won by attacking Calvin on the crackback. So I'm not sure how it would have gone, but I thought that was an interesting thing that happened that I wanted to highlight here. Other than that, you guys have seen it before, you're going to see it again. The Edgar deck's super powerful. It did the thing where he flooded the board, he was able to refuel. Calvin's a pretty tight player, especially with these Mardu decks, and by using the Forerunner of the Legion to go and get the Bloodline Necromancer, he kind of looked into the future and saw, I'm going to get board wiped. And he got board wiped, then he played Bloodline, and he flooded the board again with 3 bodies, drawing an extra card. It was quite good. He couldn't quite pull it together, because the Nekusar deck, which really needs no real wrap-up, it just did exactly what it was designed to do. It played Nekusar, it played Nekusar-like things, and then it started to wheel, and everybody died. That's kind of how the game went. I thought it was a really cool game. Thought you guys would want to see it, because we haven't seen the Nekusar deck in a minute. And with that, that's all I have for you guys. No special announcements at the end here or anything, so I guess that means I get to say thank you so much for watching. And as always, I will see you next time.